Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah? All right, great. Thank you so much for being here today. I know it's a little bit different from Tate Hall, but we are trying out a new location and we're using some much better live streaming equipment. It's going to be a little better video quality for us. But hello and welcome. It is my pleasure to have you all here today to hear Al Torres give us his artist lecture. Also, a special thanks to Stephen up in the sound booth for helping us run the live stream. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, and I just really wanted to introduce you all to Al. I know a lot of you have probably had him in class already, so you know a little bit about Al. How many of you are artists? Just a show of hands. Okay, so quite a few. So you all kind of know the complexity of coming up with a good composition, right? Yeah, the lines, the perspective, shading, all the different elements, getting contours right. It can be very complicated. And sometimes it's just about moving one line a little bit and then it just seems perfect, like it all works. Well, Al has complicated that process times two. In his paintings, he not only has one image, but two images. So he's going to tell us a little bit about how that all works, how he got started with it. And without any further delay, I'd like to introduce you all to Mr. Al Torres. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Amelia. All right. Can everybody hear me? Fine? Good. All right. So it's great to be here. And hello, Central Piedmont. Yay. I'm very happy to be here today. First of all, I'd like to thank the gallery committee for their support, to Amelia and her staff for an amazingly produced exhibition, and I'd like to thank my wife, Valentina, for her support, and to my family. All right, so enough with the formalities. So let's start. So I'd like to start at the beginning. It's always good to start at the beginning, but you could start at the end. I'm choosing the beginning today. So I was born in New York City in the French hospital, and the first day I was born, I actually did a work of art, a print of my foot. So I was drawing constantly. At the age of 10, I was constantly drawing to the disdain of the nuns. I did Babe Ruth at 10, and I was building and painting models constantly. You know, this was my best friend. Anywhere, textbooks, papers, anywhere. I mean, littered. I was barely paying attention in school. It was my way out of school in a way. At 17, I did this watercolor of this seascape, and of course I started copying Delacroix. A couple of years later, I entered the City College of New York School of Architecture, and obviously I started designing buildings. So I did this field house for the City College of New York. This is ink and Prismacolor. Below it is just ink. So I did get a lot of experience with pictographs. This is Police Athletic League Center. I can't remember where the site was, but anyway, these are the floor plans, and here on the lower section are the sections, and then the elevations. So I did want to do more painting, especially rendering, architectural rendering. So I started taking this painting class at City with Charles Myers. So I painted just buildings of Frank Lloyd Wright, famous Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. I think this is the Roby House. It's been a while. I started, for some strange reason, I always had this in the back of my head, I think, of doing this double imagery. idea. So I did one, and it wasn't too successful. So my professor, Professor Myers, pointed me towards Yaakov Agam, an Israeli artist, and he was doing these double images paintings, polymorphic paintings. So I decided to try one, but realistically. So this is one of my first, now I call them multi-view because they're realistic. So this is paradise. It's a monk who's meditating into a state of bliss. The bliss is denoted on the right by a forest, and from the middle image, you have him writing something in the book with the branch. He's using the branch as a writing instrument. And so I was hooked. So career-wise, I graduated from the City College of New York with the Bachelor of Architecture, and then I started designing stores for Woolworth. I started designing Foot Locker and Champ stores. That was 2.5 years. In those 2.5 years, I had to commute back and forth from Queens to Lower Manhattan for about 2 hours, maybe a little shy of 2 hours. So I entered the New York City subway atelier. It's a fantastic school. You have a captive audience. They can't go anywhere while you're sketching them. And they're usually asleep. The models are usually sleeping. So it's fantastic. At least a good hour and a half every day, I was drawing. I was drawing the subway riders. And it was probably a great, great education, just in terms of being able to get character and whatnot. So I actually got a job teaching in the New York City Board of Ed at IS 145Q, and that's actually the room where I taught, room 323. So during that time, I started going for my MFA, Master of Fine Arts at the New York Academy of Art, and I encountered two of my professors, very profoundly affected me, Vincent Desiderio and Stephen Assel. Vincent Desiderio, probably because of his use of triptychs, and then also just for the fantastic technique. Stephen Assel, because he's a genius, essentially. Has anybody heard of Stephen Assel? Just curious. All right, doesn't matter. You should really look these two up, both of them. Stephen Assel is amazing. I mean, essentially, all he can do is paint. He can talk, but he's amazing. He's one of the greatest painters in the United States, I would say, in terms of like alla prima, quick. So at the Academy, I started doing cast drawings, cast paintings. I would do copying from life, the Libyan Sybil. I was also drawing models from life and painting portraits from life. This is my thesis project, and it's called The Journey. It's got a dual meaning. It's my spiritual journey and my artistic journey. So the artistic is because essentially I'm holding a stretcher bar, and the stretcher bar is, well, I guess everybody in this audience knows except for like 3 people. Basically, you stretch the canvas or linen over the stretcher bar as a support. And this landscape valley is a metaphor for the rest of my life. I guess I'm going to climb off this cliff and walk along that edge to get to the horizon. So general influences, when I was very young, about 7 or so, my mother gave me a Dali book, and I was instantly hooked. I don't know what grabbed me about him, maybe because I was kind of introverted and I was into my own little world, my own little drawing world. Soon after, Velázquez, and then after that, Vermeer. So these are the people I really, really follow, plus probably 100 other artists. After I got my MFA, I went to I was the head studio assistant for Sharon Sprung at the Art Students League of New York. She's a very, very well-known portrait painter. At this point, I was also teaching as an art teacher 20 hours a week, and I was also painting models, drawing models 20 hours a week. And you talk to any New York City school teacher, and they said, that's incredible. That's, I was totally focused, and the good thing is I live 5 minutes or 10 minutes from the job. I actually walked to work. So I painted models like these. I did commissions, Nativity as Seen by an Angel, St. Anthony. I also did portrait commissions such as these. I painted landscape. So landscape paintings are great. One of the reasons why is because they really set a certain limit for you. After that 3-hour window, essentially you're done because the sun has changed position, and if you continue, you're actually painting a different scene. And this actually supposedly brightens your color sense, and then you can bring that into the studio. It helps you see color better, I would say. This is Canyon. I also did still life paintings. This is flowers in a glass vase and angel. I did these. These are kind of nice to do from life. They're kind of small, 5 by 7 or so, and they gave me this immediate gratification done within a few days, as opposed to doing a multi-view painting, which you'll see. Thinking of Einstein, again from life. This is basically a skull that's thinking about Einstein. Why is he thinking about Einstein? Because he has a little Einstein statue stuck in his head. All right, so the idea behind multi-views, I don't call them polymorphic. I just came up with that name. I want to be a little different. So essentially you have 3 views. You have the left view, the right view, the front view, and then you have all the other intermediate ones as well. This I did for the Board of Ed. It's called Fit for Life. And when I'm doing these, I'm always really, really concerned about the middle view. If the middle view doesn't have something going on, some type of clever idea, I just won't do the painting. It just won't make any sense to invest that much time in it. So the idea behind this was I've got a cafeteria scene on the left, the gym on the right, and it seems as if this broad jumper here is jumping out of the body of this kid in the cafeteria. Fit for life. This is a 9/11 study. Usually I don't do flat studies, but I did for this one. I was at the teaching not far away from the Trade Center when that happened, and I can remember that day like yesterday. All of a sudden we heard a plane hit, and he said, okay, it's a small Cessna. Then another plane, and then, all pandemonium broke out. I mean, kids were being dismissed left and right, and it's really quite a day. Anyway, so the story behind this is Father Michael Judge, who was one of the first casualties there. And you have the first responders here, and they're bringing him, lifting him up, and they're over here. It seems as if he's going up into the light, and here he's gone up through the light. So this is my mother-in-law. She passed away a few years ago, so I wanted to do a tribute painting for her. She loved orchids. So I knew I wanted to do a multi-view. I just didn't want to do a flat painting. So I thought that why not have the orchids around her neck, almost as if it's an Hawaiian lei, and then the last orchid would be by her nose, as if she's smelling it. Then there's other things going on here. You have this orchid leaf. It almost looks like a melted watch. I guess that's remnants from Dali. And then the butterfly. The butterfly is there, has a symbol of renewal, metamorphosis. And this is what it looks like. So, how do I come up with these concepts? I don't intentionally think of a multi-view idea. It just pops into my head in the most unexpected times. So essentially, it's a burst of an idea, and I've got to get it out. I've got sketchbooks everywhere. I've got a sketchbook with me right now. In case I think of an idea right now, I'll write it, draw it out. And I'm constantly drawing. Just ask my wife. I'm constantly drawing, constantly. It gets a little annoying at times. Over here, I thought, why don't I have a bouquet of flowers? And then on the right, why don't I have a waterfall? And then from the middle view, it would seem as if the bouquet of flowers was being watered by the waterfall. So essentially, that's what's happening here. On the right, there's this little entity, and I don't know what to call her. I just want to keep it open-ended, let you decide. A fairy, an angel, I don't know. You decide what it is. And there's water splashing down on her hand. And she's sitting on a rock, on a boulder, and from the middle view, the boulder is also embedded within a rose. So it's just these multiple things going on from the front. Pilot Mountain, again, came to me very fast. I had been there at Pilot Mountain. I was really, really impressed. What's nice is that it's just, relatively close, to get reference photos. So I thought, well, why not get the mountain in, almost as if it's a volcano. And then the flowers, bouquet of flowers on the right. So from the middle view, it seems almost as if the mountain is spewing out these flowers. Also, from the middle view, the vase has the stems. Within this vase, you actually have this area of the trees. So there's another meaning that within the vase, it almost looks like a terrarium as well. So more into the nitty-gritty here, techniques. To do a multi-view, I actually do a mock-up, a full-scale mock-up. I'll gesso the angles, just one layer gesso, quick, and I'll paint it with golden open acrylics. If you don't know about those are amazing. They actually dry within about a day. It's essentially like using oil paint, but you don't have to worry about ventilation, and it's just, I don't know, it just gives me a lot more freedom for that initial idea. So this was the concept. Now, the interesting thing is that as I go from the study to the final painting, I start making revisions. And the painting wouldn't work out if I said, okay, I'm going to hold fast to this idea of the study. Like I was trained in the academy, you're going to paint that or else, You're not going to deviate 1 inch. So I let myself maneuvering ability. So for example, the crescent moon became a full moon. I omitted this flower here. I placed a flower over here on the left. Also, the butterfly changed colors. The butterfly seems as if it's almost floating from the moon, like a balloon. And lastly, I was intrigued by Alice in Wonderland and the caterpillar on the mushroom, and I just thought, well, there's a mushroom, it needs something. Not a caterpillar, but a snail. So I put a snail there. And it was right up against this deadline. I was saying, am I going to bite off more than I can chew here, so to speak? Here's another study on the top. So this is Hanging Rock, Chimney Rock State Park. This is actually it here. The scale of the people here are a lot smaller. So I just decided to put a larger person. And then, of course, I swiped that person with myself. It's amazing how you end up in your own painting sometimes. So in terms of the study compared to the final painting, I ended up having it, well, even in the original version, the study, I wanted myself kind of like embedded in this large lily. It's sort of like opening up. Then also what I did, changes from the study to the final version, I united these two mountains, made it a larger mountain here, so that it seemed, again, that this large lily was blooming out of that mountain from the front. Also, there was a space here. I rearranged the lilies. I just didn't like the arrangement. And then there was this blank space, and I don't know. I was just thinking, what can I put there? Not a snail. How's about a turtle? So I put a turtle, and I don't know, it seems to make the composition better. And this was very difficult. The perspective was, I don't know, I don't even want to think about it. So this is all those paintings strung together. So I use a turntable for that. I don't use a dolly anymore, just very less control. So I actually film it on the turntable and then I reverse it and then manipulate, zooming in and whatnot. Okay, so daily rituals. After I wake up, I have a cup of coffee. And the coffee mug doesn't have to have my portrait on it, by the way. Then I go for a walk with a sketch pad. This is about 1 mile outside of Charlotte in Huntersville. This kind of clears my mind, and it's very meditative. It's isolated, which I like. I see a lot of squirrels, some deer and whatnot. And I have the sketch pad with me because a lot of times I will get ideas there. As you're thinking, that's when you're most productive sometimes, believe it or not. So this is my studio. I have workstations. Essentially, this is what I cut up wood for the wood triangular pieces at the ends of the multi-view paintings, which I'll show you in a minute. I also arrange my angles here. This, incidentally, is a sink. And there's a lot of little tricks that I use to save time. One of them is after each session, I'll just take my brushes and I'll put it in a container of safflower oil. And then I'll keep doing that until I run out of space. So essentially, I only have to clean my brushes about once a month, because it can take a lot of time cleaning brushes. Here is the other side. This is actually where I glue my panels. This is kind of like a planning area. This is where I paint. These are portraits from New York. This is another view of the studio. This is a great saver in terms of space. After a while, you do accumulate painting. So I got this great unit. I actually brought it in New York City, and I transported it to Charlotte. When we moved to Huntersville, we actually got it transported to Huntersville. So we had to disassemble it, assemble it, and it actually fit perfectly in that corner. Over here, through this door, is storage area, and that's where I have my supply air. This is another view. Through here, in my wife's office, I've got the exhaust fan. So essentially, I have ventilation going across there, because I do paint with oils and mineral spirits, and, medium. And this is the outside of the studio. For some reason, I always work into the night. I don't know. I'm like a night owl. I just like the tranquility and whatnot of the night. So these are the angles. So I'm arranging the angles to build this multi-view. Here, I'm arranging them still. So here is these triangular pieces of wood. I don't like to have the little hollow showing from the metal angle. Here are the triangular pieces of wood glued to the aluminum angles. And, there's been a long tradition in art of working with copper. You get this amazing luminosity. You look at a copper painting and at a painting on linen, and you can really see the difference in the luminosity. And I think that's what the aluminum does. So I glue my angles onto a panel with 5,000 PSI epoxy glue. And I let it set for about 12 to 24 hours. And basically, it's a little nerve-wracking because I've already invested, time and money and whatnot on that. That's a specialized panel. And if one of the angles shift or something, that's not going to move once that's glued, unless you break the panel. So luckily, it does end up working out. And I knew my art library would come in handy one day, by the way. So here's the finished panel, not finished, intermediately finished. Here's Lily Pond and Hanging Rock. So I start gessoing it. There's this great gesso I use, Artboard's Gesso. That's where I get my panel from. They're out of Brooklyn, I believe. And I get my panels from Artboards as well. So I mix up the gesso here. I usually incorporate some water. I just don't like the gesso so thick. I'd rather do it in layers, thinner layers. So here I am gessoing these two panels. And sanding. So as you can see, I've got an exhaust fan right there. I've got goggles, gloves, mask. I'm listening to podcasts, YouTube, music. I don't know, I like podcasts for some reason. And so I just repeat this process about 7 to 9 times. So after all that work, it looks like that. So all I got to do is the painting now. So I developed this contraption way of painting. I've got a cinder block below because everything is so heavy that it will probably just tilt over if I didn't have the counterweight on the bottom. This is my palette. This is the right side of Lily Pond. I put my mediums in here. Through here, I think you can just barely see it. It is the exhaust fan. I've got a mahl stick. This is the front. And this is me painting. The right side, I'm sorry, the left side of the multi-view, I've got to turn my easel, actually. And then I clamp my easel vertically, and then I work on the left. I've got 2 tables here along here. I've got my paints here, and then brushes on the secondary table. So once I'm done with both sides, I'm not finished because paint from the left has bled to the right and vice versa. So I have to touch up everything again. And then that's a few days of work. Basically, when I'm done with both sides, I can breathe a sigh of relief. And I say, okay, now this is just a formality, I guess. So, future painting ideas. I don't know, perhaps making a series of multi-view connected with bridges of realistic painting, or perhaps connecting 2 multi-view paintings back to back on a turntable. Not that I'm going to do this. I don't know. It's just throwing ideas out there. You know, when I am teaching my design class, 2D design class, I tell my students, you know, even if this idea doesn't seem right, throw it out there. You know, throw everything out on the board, the chalkboard or whatever. You know, just don't inhibit yourself because you never know, something may have a germ of an idea that you didn't think would work. So, going back to the sketch pads, I just wanted to show the students that over the years I did accumulate these hundreds of sketch pads. They're great, Strathmore 4x6. This brings me to advice for the art students here. The motto of the Art Students League of New York is no day without a line. It finds its source in the Greek painter Apelles, who did not go a day without drawing at least one line. So carry one of these wherever you go, especially at 6-hour family occasions in which you just don't feel like dancing. So you can produce drawings like these. Lastly, I'd like to conclude with these, some of my favorite quotes. The great pleasure in life is doing what people say you can't do. The act of painting is about one art telling another one where he found salvation, and I close my eyes to see. Thank you. Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so we open it up for questions.
So I noticed that a lot of your recent work has naturalistic qualities to it.
Has what?
Has like naturalistic qualities to
Yeah.
it, like nature and flowers and things like that.
Right.
Is there anything specific that inspired you to do that besides nature?
Nature is a big, influence and inspiration for me. It's awe-inspiring. I try to combine landscape and flowers, which are two like the most popular genres. Yeah, it's just nature inspires me. Yeah, living inspires me. Like you wake up in the morning and it's miraculous in a way. You've got all this going on in your body and you have no control over it. Everything's being done for you. Yes. Somebody as a what? My wife. I surprised my wife. Thank you, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you ever consider going really big with one of those perspective things?
Right. So the Fit for Life for the Board of Ed was big. It was about 4 feet across. I did another big one for the Diocesan of Brooklyn, a nativity. So I've gone as big as 4 feet across. I don't mind going bigger. I mean, if you know somebody that needs a commission, let me know. Anybody else? Yes. Right. So my last show was called Metamorphosis, and I just really like that word. I tried to find other words like what metamorphosis was in Greek, and it was mutasis. And I don't know, it just didn't seem to, roll off your mouth that well. So I just like that word, so I just called this metamorphosis. It's just a total transformation of, the imagery. Anybody? Yes. The Jubian, I can't hear you. If you could. The bright colors? Okay, I think you're saying what colors I use? The bright colors, right. So the bright colors are the cadmiums. I use CADs, I use earth colors, basically a lot of color. It's kind of like I was taught by all these instructors. One of the instructors was the earth tone instructor, earth colors. Another one was CADs, another one was everything. So it's kind of like after a while, you just combine everything you're taught and make it your own. Yeah. Yes? The way they're organized? I tend to do, the landscape florals, and then I tend to do the portraits in a series, in a way. I work that way, I think, in series. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy.
Did you arrange your exhibition, the order it went in? Are they in order of year? Are they order of moment?
Well, you could ask Amelia that. She was there.
Did you just hang them, or was there any meaning behind it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know how many of you have had the chance to see the exhibition yet, but in the corner when you walk in on the left side, we have a painting of Little Al. in utero. So we thought, what more of a natural starting point than at that point, like before Al was born? So we did that, and we hung all the portraits next to each other, and then we went on to the landscapes, and then ended with
With the barn.
With the barn.
Opposite the studio, yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
and that was a group effort. That wasn't just, that wasn't just my decision either.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
I know this is a labor-intensive technique that you're using. Have you ever been commissioned to do an outdoor mural? And if so, would you be inclined to find a more expedient technique to be able to do something more scale that could be seen by, a lot of people out in the ground?
I wouldn't mind doing an outdoor mural, absolutely. Or it could be done indoors and put outdoor. If it has to be done on site, I wouldn't mind considering doing it on site, like I said, yeah. I would consider it.
How you would do it so large though? Would you use aluminum also?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to think of that. Yeah, I don't know. Probably some kind of weather-resistant paint, maybe aluminum, yeah. Anybody else? Yes? Well, there was a family reason why I moved here. My wife decided, my brother moved here from New York, then we moved here, then about 20 of his friends moved here, and now he's a real estate mogul. Anyway, yeah, and I just had to finish off in New York, and I really did not, hesitate. I love this part of the country. Also, New York, I don't know if you've been in New York, there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of artists. I think here I probably am doing better, in a medium-sized city, I would guess. Charlotte has a lot, and it has a lot of art going on, so I don't miss New York, actually. Yes?
I see that throughout your career you've gotten definitely to, I would consider a mastery of realism.
Thank you.
Do you see yourself exploring any other styles maybe from your own, regardless of your future ideas that you have in place?
I am open. I am open to diverting. It's interesting. It's kind of like having an art career. You're walking in the woods, and you don't know what's around that bend. When you get to that bend, you make a slight adjustment, and you keep going, you're wandering, and you don't know where you're going to end up. I mean, look at Picasso. Picasso was a master. He could have been one of the greatest realists that ever lived, but he chose to do abstraction. So I don't know all I know is I will continue doing art, whatever form it develops into. Anybody else? Yes?
What do you suggest if someone tried to do those?
Tuan. Why don't you try one, Tuan? Yeah, thank you, Tuan. I absolutely go for it. Was there one of your students that wants to try it too, Sarah? They're doing drawing, yeah. So absolutely. I mean, why not? It's not a secret. Absolutely. Try Multiview. Yes.
I was wondering, out of all the pieces that you have done, do you have like a favorite or a couple of favorites?
Yeah, so the one in the show, I guess Maman Paradise would be one of my favorites. The Hanging Rock, the last one I did is kind of nice, the imagery with the cliff, and then the yellow flowers and the little snail. Yeah, so, yes. Not so much. It's the immediate impact of the concept drawing-wise. The colors come once I start the study. And then I do think about the colors, yes. So like the hanging rock with the yellow flowers, I used kind of like an analogous scheme. The lily pond, I kind of spread out the colors. Sometimes, you know, it's, to me at least, I think that it comes to me unconsciously. Like I used to do this, I would say, okay, I want a 1/3, you know, focal point. I want a golden section. I wanted this and I wanted that. You know, it's too structured. One of my favorite teachers, Andy Reese from Brooklyn, who studied art for like 30 years, he said that, this is what he said, you know, art doesn't work that way. He says, essentially, you've got all this knowledge base, all this foundation, and you use it intuitively, and then you just go with it. I've become a lot more intuitive and not thinking about it. It's almost like it's like an after effect, you know, of saying, oh, by the way, I've got, you know, those colors working, whatever. I do a little bit think about the colors and whatnot, but I think my initial impulse is intuitively. Yeah. Yes.
As a follow-on to that, how do you think about, or do you think at all about the commercial aspect of your work?
Right. So that's a tricky question. You know, I think you have to pick this career because, and I think some of the other speakers have spoken about it, I think art picks you. I think you don't have a choice to do this. You know, whether it's architecture, graphic design, art educator, it just happens. And commercially, you know, I am able to sell work, but if I never sold a painting in my life, I'd keep going anyway. That's my attitude. Anybody else? Yes?
You know, in later years, Chuck Close lost the capability of his tight rendering as a photorealist. I wondered, but he found another direction in order to make those amazing portraits. I wondered, have you ever considered another technique in order to make your photorealism, you know, like maybe using rapidograph pens or you know, dots or something that just to see what would happen.
Right. I'm kind of wedded to oil painting. I don't mind doing, you know, like impressionist technique, you know, spotted paintbrush. I mean, I have another show coming up and I am already thinking, what am I going to do different? So I am probably going to change it up. You know, I just want to keep evolving, let's say. Okay. Anybody else? Yes. What kind of techniques do I use for painting? Okay. So the painting, okay, that's a great question. Okay, just, you know, short answer, I guess. Essentially, the initial layer, I'll do an imprimatura stain of like a red, okay? Then I'll go in there and paint initially with mineral spirits, you know, keeping it thin. And then I'll start going in with thicker paint, a little bit of medium. And I like to get the whole canvas covered. That's what one of my teachers, Sharon Sprong, always used to say, get the canvas covered, get the canvas covered. All these teachers would say different things. One would say, squint. The other one would say, back up. And that's all they would say. You know, they wouldn't say hello. They would just say, squint to me in the morning, you know. Anyway, so I would get the canvas covered and then, you know, keep going and work in layers. And as you're working, once you have a nice layer there, I oil it out with the medium. The medium I use is half mineral spirits, half stand oil, and half, quarter liquid. I probably got that wrong. Anyway, too many halves. But, so I oil out, I take off the excess, and I paint into that. I think that's called a couch or something like that, whatever. But anyway, and that's a really good technique because that actually gives you, when you oil out, that actually gives you the ability to work into what you had. So it gives you this kind of like one seamless, it almost seems like one seamless episode of painting, whatnot. And so once the painting is dry, then I wait a month and I varnish it with retouch varnish. Yeah, all right. Anybody else? Yes? Yeah, in the studio, I did consider that. I don't think the shadows cast on the painting themselves, but they do cast off the lip of the frame. It just worked out that no shadows are cast on the paintings, luckily. But I didn't consider it. It was just too much going on. I, had this deadline. I was saying, and it was beautifully exhibited, magnificent. Yes.
Do you always focus on one side at a time, or have you ever bounced back and forth?
Right, great question, great question. I basically focus on one side, then the right side, because I've done all that in the study. The study is about a week, and it's just quick, open acrylics. So I'm able to, it's almost like a sandbox where I'm able to play and not worry, am I going to mess this up? So I basically always go left, right, and then in between to touch up the overspill from either side. Anybody else?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for all of those questions. I think that might be a record on the number of questions that have been asked during the lecture. Really appreciate it. Just a few quick things before I dismiss all of us. Al is going to have an artist lecture just happened, an opening reception in the Ross Gallery this evening, starting at 5:30. So if you would like the chance to see Al's artwork and maybe get a chance to have a more personal conversation, please do come by. We'll be there from 5:30 to 7:30. Also, we do have sign-in sheets down here that are available for you. So if you're here for a class, please do sign in. Put down your instructor's name as well as the class so we can get them that information. All right, that's it, everybody. Have a good day.
All right, thank you. I think that worked out. Thank you.